while the microphone is being set up, so Nate is going to talk about one of the verticals that you will find within Intuiface. It's the banking. Banks can be pretty, I would say, tight on the rules about data security and the way you work with them and you access potentially some customer data. So Nate is going to tell us about his experience on these projects. Thank you.
Is this working all right? You can't hear me. Okay, good. First of all, thank you guys all very much for allowing me some time to come in here today. I think Seb mentioned earlier, I was one of the early adapters of this, and 4.5 years ago stumbled upon their website, and I'll share how in a moment, and then pestered Jeff because he was down the road from us and near the Cape Cod, and we're in New Hampshire, and I was like, can you drive up here and show me how to use this thing? He's like, no, we got all these things online. You'll be fine. So we've had this great relationship, and so I'm excited to share some information with you today. So we are Element, and we're headquartered in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is just an hour north of Boston if you've ever been there. Again, this is a look at kind of our design floor of our building. We've got additional locations around the United States, and these are, when I say locations, these are not buildings, these are sales offices. So these are sales guys, we have program and project managers that are in and about the country doing different things for us. But we also have built on our second floor what we call this Element Experience Lounge. And you'll see in a minute, we work primarily with just banks and credit unions, and in addition to digital, we also design and build the bank itself. So we're fortunate to bring our customers into our space early on in the process. And as part of that, they get to see, digital displays with overlays, touch screens all over the place. So we get them to interact with it before we even really make the sales pitch when it comes to interactive displays. So it's great. So, they're involved in our discussion of digital is from day one when we're doing anything with these customers. But ultimately what we do is design, build, and implement retail environments for banks and credit unions around the United States. And one of the things, and I certainly won't speak for Europe because I don't know, but in the financial world in the US, for years and years, banks basically were pushing people out, right? Go to the ATM, use our web, use our mobile application, do anything, don't come inside, right? Well, what happened was nobody came inside, therefore you can't sell anything. You can't cross-sell, and you can't get them into new products and services. So now, all of these banks are trying to figure out, well, how do I get the customer back in, and how do I engage them when they're back in the space? So for us, the industry is really taking an uptick in the sense that they're trying to figure out how to be like a retailer and get away from what people think of as a traditional bank, or credit union. And for us also, the digital signage piece of it, and I'm going to a couple images as we go through here. Digital signage for us is the fastest growing segment of all our business. We build institutions, and it's not that we don't like to do it, but you can't make mistakes. The margins are very lean, right? We almost build them as a loss leader so that we can get into the other aspects of what we do from graphics, digital, touch screens development, and the ongoing kind of processes that we work with. And the good news for people like us and people like here that are integrators is that financial institutions do not have the retail expertise to do this themselves. Just plain and simple. They're very good at banking, very poor at creativity. So the good news is they listen to people like us. When we start talking about what these experiences should be, they don't have any options or they don't have any ideas themselves. So we're the ones that are putting it out in front of them, talking about it, and instantly becoming kind of experts in their mind. So this was one of the gentlemen mentioned working in New York City. This is a project on Madison Avenue for a popular bank. And what I think was interesting was you're talking about square footage. He was talking about price of being in some of these downtowns. And this in Madison Avenue is almost $500 a square foot to build this thing. Now this becomes their showcase location, obviously. So everything has to work, everything has to function. And it allowed us kind of some real creativity and from our in-table touchscreens to the rest of the digital environments that are throughout. As far as our team, we're made up of about a little over 30 people. And again, a part of those, we've got architects, we've got all types of designers, digital designers, environmental designers, we got furniture specialists. But this is our digital team. So there's 8 of us, and that ranges from kind of UX design, traditional digital content design, programming, and by programming, we're talking Intuiface. And one of the things you'll see in a minute, Intuiface for us was an absolute goldmine find, because if you've dealt with developers, not that they're bad, but they develop. They want to code everything, and it takes time and money to do that. So again, our challenge right now is getting more of this team really into how to program within Intuiface. So we've got great design talent. We need more programmers on our end. And when I say environmental design, just so we're clear, this is a digital display. We have a traditional digital signage here, an Intuiface experience. And when we talk about environmental, it's building those things that make the screens look impressive. At the end of the day, the content is king. It always will be. But if we can't get people to just look at it or see it when they come in, we've dropped the ball. And sometimes when we start talking tabletops, they're a little more difficult because they're not in sight immediately. And banks traditionally don't walk up to them. If you go to a bank, you basically sit tight. You don't touch anything. So we have to kind of change that model or change that idea. Anybody in here work with banks yet? Got a few. Great. So one of the things that you'll see, or one of the things that we think are really important is there's a lot of competition in the space amongst themselves, all right? But there's a real lack of differentiation. You know, if I grab a water, William, could you grab me just water? Oh, thank you. My public speaking teacher in college 30 years ago wouldn't be happy with me right now. Thank you. Lots of competition in financial services. The good news is for us is they all look the same. You walk into a bank, the bank is a bank is a bank, right? So it allows an opportunity, whether you're a full design firm like us or just a digital integrator, to come in and say, let us show you some things that are going to be really unique to your building, your branch, but also, you know, in the whole marketplace. You can go down to any street USA and see 10 different institutions. What's going to separate them? So digital is certainly a big piece of that. Technology is changing very fast in the industry. Back of house, which is kind of ATMs, ITMs, smart technology, and then front of house, which is what people see when they walk into the physical environment. And we need to be there showcasing some of these things that can happen and making sure that the staffs are trained very, very well on those things. But ultimately, through Intuiface, we get to provide the banks with the technology to engage consumers when they come in the door. And that's one of the things that is hurting the business right now, is they don't have those tools. And for a good part of their staffs that have been there for a long time, they're not necessarily trained to sell. You know, everybody hates that word. I'm a salesman. These devices allow for very easy engagement and interaction with customers or prospects coming in. What we have to do, and for the folks that have worked in the financial space, is help them justify that expense. So there's a couple of ways that we can do it. Fortunately, with the banks, they typically have the money, but you have to justify it. So they'll look at all of those hardware costs as, how am I going to depreciate this over a 5 or 7 year period? So if you buy a $5,000 ELO Touch with the Windows player in it, they're going to look at it as that's $60 a month cost. I'm going to depreciate over 7 years. That's what we have to work towards. They're not just looking like you or I may saying, wow, that's a $5,000 nut I've got to take care of. It's $60 to them. So again, you roll out a lot of them. We need to help them justify the money, and also help them see what kind of savings they might have by emailing brochures, emailing applications, anything else that today you typically walk into a bank and pick up can be delivered electronically. You can direct print also, as somebody was mentioning earlier, which is a great solution for people that either don't have email or aren't tech savvy. But those numbers, those paper print things are quantifiable, and we know what those dollars are. So we help build that case so that our people that have to go back to the CFO can say, yeah, this is, it's a big expense, but we're going to make it back, and our depreciation schedule makes it work. So this is actually a bank I was in last week. There's a lot of this out there, right? Not exactly modern looking or very contemporary, and we need to get them into environments that are engaging and pull people in. So obviously this is an Intuiface experience for a small bank in Massachusetts. And again, the ability to take it, do a little environmental work makes it an interesting piece. How we get into interactive services and how I stumbled upon Intuiface started 4.5 or 5 years ago. one of our customers, Popular Bank, called up, and we were going to do a full branch brand new proto model for them in New York City. And as part of it, they said they wanted a lot of digital, they wanted touch experience, they wanted everything's got to be sent via emails and text messages, they wanted a check-in system, all this stuff. As a good salesman, I said, absolutely, not a problem, we'll figure out how to do it. And didn't have a clue. So we luckily found, we literally bumped into a programmer in our town, and we were talking about it. He says, well, we do this all the time. We write code, we can make this happen. Fantastic, right? So hired the local developer. They threw numbers at us that I thought were staggering. I'm like, you know, we're gonna charge this to the bank to build this stuff? He's like, yeah, they won't think anything of this. And this is the audience, by the way. This amazing group of dynamic, creative people is what we had to go sell. So, but long story short, we put all of these things together, put it in a car, drove it to Manhattan. This was down on Wall Street, and kind of sold the entire deal. Right? Good for us. We get it in here. We learned very quickly once the first issue happened what it cost to get it fixed and the timing that it kept taking to get this stuff repaired. And I guess as someone, I'm no coder, didn't know anything about it. They could have told me anything and I'd have to believe it. So I said, we can't build our company on this and have to rely on outside sources that, again, seemed expensive, timely, but we didn't control it. So I literally started going online and typing in, you know, kind of WYSIWYG of touch displays, and up came these guys. And immediately I downloaded the free software. I contacted Jeff. He put me in touch with some of the back-end stuff and some of the basic tools. And, you know, to me, it was like a kid in a candy store, because I had no problem trying things. Not that I'm a designer, but I actually built the first 2 touch experiences that we sold to a bank and a credit union that were out west. They were not very good, but they did the basics and got us rolling. And from that, we hired better people and more talented people than I when it came to that. But that's how we came across Intuiface and started growing from there. We also know, and somebody mentioned Apple earlier too, from a design house that does architectural and digital, certainly Apple is phenomenal. And it's easy to talk about all the things that they do, but one of the things that I tell our customers is, I go to an Apple store anywhere in the world, I come out a little smarter. They are very eager to show me the next greatest thing. Can my phone do this? You know, you can connect your wallet to your watch. All these little kind of tips and tricks so you come out feeling like it was a worthwhile visit. Now you look at banks today that have a ton of knowledge at how we're supposed to save money, make money, put my daughter through college and get her married and retire, buy all that stuff. They have all this knowledge and don't share it at all. Or if they do, they stink at it. And so we started looking at this. And the very simple thing, the first time I bought something from them, when they did the handheld checkout, and I went to walk out the store, and my phone vibrated in my pocket, and I popped it up, and there was my receipt. I thought, well, how simple is this? This is a no-brainer. And right away, the initial thing was just, we got to get brochures, applications done this way for banks and make it simple for the consumer. So we wanted to look at this. We also know that we needed to build in opportunities for the banks to have these discussions, which was not happening. So this is where we are very fortunate, and there may be some people in here that are kind of the same idea, same business model, but because we're an architecture firm as well, when somebody comes to us, and this was Popular Bank, they said, our local architect did this design, 2,500 square feet, pretty bland, not much to it, not very exciting. He said, you know, help us out. Great, we worked a weekend. Came up with a whole different kind of scheme. Same building type, but all the blue parts that you see in here are interactive pieces, either digital displays or touch screens. So we were able to build that in day one in their mindset and basically didn't give an option. It's kind of their option to take away, but otherwise it's going into the program. It's built into our budget, and now the discussion becomes, okay, how do we build this and what are we going to put on these things? And again, because they don't have experience, they look to us. And one of the great things of having these types of conferences, meeting people, seeing good retail, is you get more and more ideas of what can be shared and what can be valuable, but also what information can be taken back from that and used. So the other thing that we do, and I didn't play the sound, in our marketplace, we do a lot of in-house, just little quick videos. You know, we learn a new thing, or we've got a new little application they'd like to show, email blasts all out to our database. Right? They're always struggling with how to do some very simple things. So we just had a large RFP come through which these guys helped us out on. 2,400 branch location, which we're still waiting to hear back. But part of that is we sent through a 3-page PDF showing example after example of how it can be used in their environment. And I think, especially for that bank, we were certainly a small player. We kind of snuck in the door and they liked what we did. But this was one way to show them that we could do all the stuff they were looking for and more, even if we didn't have the size organization that I might be looking at. So those tools are on our Vimeo page, or a ton of just private videos that we send out when needed. As far as strategy, when all these things come into play, again, we're fortunate that we design up front to these places, so we just build it into every project. So if you don't have the ability to do that, it might be something where you might try to partner up with someone that's a specialty in your field, or it's an architecture firm or an industry, to say, what you don't want to do is come in late to the game and either the space is gone, or they filled it with a poster, or they filled it with just a traditional display or something like that. So find those other people that can help you. But we build it into the project automatically. We assist with the choreography. A touch display is only as good as the activity that it gets. And again, in banking, people are not used to coming in and touching things. So we have to train the staff to say, listen, a new client comes in, make sure you walk them over here and show them, whether it's the basic stuff of getting a brochure or filling out a survey, whatever it might be. We need to do that training. Understand their depreciation schedule, ultimately selling 1 or 2 additional products. But in our case, we design it, we render it, so there's nothing left kind of to their mind of what this thing's going to look like. And then we implement it into space and do our final training in that. And through that whole time, our developers are working hand in hand with their creative team. And we usually, at this point, we have a screen. One of these screens is probably in their marketing lab. So as we're updating stuff, we're pushing it over to them. This is in Hawaii. We're pushing it, testing it out, look and feel, and all making sure it all works properly. So it's a good thing to do. Our process, again, starts a little more unique for us. So if we have a client, and it could be just a digital client, but in a lot of cases they're doing other things with us, we initially send them this design questionnaire, and there's about 8 pages of it. And really what it tells us is where they're trying to go as an institution, how contemporary they want to be, what are some of the new things they're looking to get. So we'll have 3 or 4 or 5 of their people fill it out. It gets sent back to us, and now we know where are they all alike and where are the big differences. So when they do eventually come to New Hampshire, or we bring the team to them to start the whole process, we have an idea of the roadmap that they're going to do, and that we can kind of get better prepared for them. We typically have a kickoff meeting somewhere that could be in their offices or ours, but that kind of starts our design process. And probably like a lot of people, you're almost kind of wireframing it like you would a website. You start filling in with the images. One of our biggest questions once they start understanding what can be done is, do you want kind of a widget wall screen where you've got a lot of activity potentially happening? They see a lot of things that they can engage with, or is it a single screen, kind of the touch to begin screen? So they don't even have a concept that those are the options in most cases. So we'll share these things and again start pushing it across. We also, part of our development, we build everything data-wise back into Airtable. And this is something that we learned from Seb and his team a while back. The reason being is we will design the experience, we'll use their assets, we'll use different graphics, all of that, in the hopes that they have the ability now where they can make any basically change they want. Almost every image, every text box, everything in there, if they're pulling in feeds, can be pulled in by them. We're happy to do it for them for a fee, but certainly they can do it all themselves. So that's part of our training to make sure that happens out there. We also do what we call test drives sometimes. So sometimes we'll have an organization in, we're talking about whatever it is we're going to do for them. They see our touchscreens and think, geez, I'm still not there yet, or I don't know if I can justify it. We're not sure if people will use it. So typically we have a couple of the kind of the 22-inch tabletops that we have in our office. We have a couple of kind of simple survey questionnaires that we can go in Intuiface and reskin in an hour and turn it into their brand. And we'll say, listen, why don't we put it in your main office for the next 30 days? And let's, make some random questions. They could be really business questions, or it could be fun questions about who's going to win the Super Bowl, who's going to do this, what's your favorite mobile app? And again, we collect data. We come back to them in 30 days and say, look what we got out of this. We got some great information here. So we'll do that as a test drive period, and hopefully that kind of secures their idea that they're gonna do this for us. So, but then we continue to test things. We review them and updates. Ultimately, launch it and then train the staff. So we make sure that everybody is understanding how to use the table, as simple as it is. It's still it's intuitive enough, but we try to give them kind of the essence of how do you bring guests up to, how do you walk somebody over here and bring some value in for those. And then ultimately kind of roll that out throughout the process and make these things real and make them happen. And the last piece, actually, just last week, our folks from Hawaii were back into our office, and now we're talking about what's the next phase of digital touch. We did kind of a very basic version up front that's been in the original branch about 8 months. We're rolling out to network so that it's in the same thing. So now they came in and said, here's the next level of where we want to go. And for them in banking, one of the big issues is compliance. Right? Compliance officers are the nightmare. They're tough to deal with, but they have a job to do and have to do it. So before anything can be emailed to a prospect or customer, they have to basically sign a compliance form and also prove that they can, if they want to get electronically, that they can get electronically. So now we're working that they're going to come into the touch. Yes, I want this brochure. Great. They'll put in their email. It'll send it off to them. They can open it on their phone, kind of, yep, I accept it. And now the brochures can come through. So working individually to build these things to help break down the barriers is very important. But then there's reality, right? It all sounds good, but these things with banks take time. And for anybody who's worked with banks probably knows, they're not the quickest to jump into things. So this was a project we started with ViStar Credit Union down in Jacksonville, Florida. We had our initial meeting was December of 2018. And we knew there was going to be some design projects. So lo and behold, August of 2019, they're finally like, yep, we're ready to go. So we go down, we have our initial kickoff meeting with those folks on the 19th. We start, at this meeting, we start talking about what we want to have. What are the options? What can we do? Let's start talking about the things that we need to get to people immediately now, and maybe a roadmap for the next year or two, because we want to stay in the game with these folks. So we do all of that. Design the look and feel of it, the experience. We're pushing it back and forth to make sure we're online. They probably got 12 guys in their IT department, so security. They're nice guys, but it's a nightmare. It's tough to work with these people because all they're worried about is security, nothing else. You got the marketing people, all they want to do is look pretty, and you got to kind of mirror the two and match those two to do that. So all the in-house testing has been done now, and this first 3 branches launch in the next week for us. But the ultimate goal for us is they've got there'll be 60 branches next year, and based on the prototypes, there'll be roughly 300 touch devices throughout the 60 branches that are in there. So that's the prize. But in this particular case, it's a year-long process to get there. So we've got a lot of folks that were in that kind of learning stage. We've got the first couple branches outfitted. We need to do a better job of using the analytic tool, because as soon as we can start telling a bank that, hey, you had 45 people that came in last week to this branch and downloaded a mortgage brochure, and they can get that into an automated program through their email, is very powerful. And for a banker, as soon as they see there's a return on investment, money comes out quickly. So that's what they want to see, as a lot of industries do. It's our job is to, we're not just selling them stuff. We have to make it work to do those sorts of things. So, and then reality, this was, again, last couple weeks ago, what the branch looks like. Installs are about to happen. And hopefully, knock on wood, it'll go as smooth as their testings have gone, and they'll be excited to roll forward. So from our perspective, Intuiface has been a very easy product to learn. As far as getting help, I say, Seb's been great, and Kurt has been great. I mean, I call those guys, or I text them or email. They've saved my butt a few times on some calls with that ViStar when the IT guys, have a big issue. They've been quick to react for me. So I would say you ask questions, you ask for help. They're here to help us a ton with support and teach us new things. From a development side, we can make this as simple as we want to or as robust. And I think that's great, especially in our world where the banks are somewhat conservative. We can start out with a very simple program, but it is our job is to keep bringing them new things every quarter, every 6 months, and every year. We want it to be like a mobile app where there's always these upgrades. So by learning something new and be able to save it as a design accelerator or have it kind of in the can where, geez, I can use all of that knowledge and data. I'm just reskinning it and rebranding it, and I can bring it to another institution. It's very powerful, as it would be for kind of any other customer that's out there. Again, cost effective, and for us, is this unlimited opportunity. We need to get better at seeing digital everywhere we go, see what experiences we think are exciting for us, and then in our case, how do we take that and build it back into the financial service world? And hopefully get them excited about things. And once they start to see where it could go, again, then they start thinking creatively as well. So that is it. So thank you guys very much. If you have any questions, I've got 0 time, but thank you.